Welcome to the March 18th meeting of the Littleton Planning Board. We have a full agenda this evening, and we're waiting for one or two more members of the board. So while we're doing that, we'll at least read the public hearing notice, and we'll get started as quickly as we can.
The public hearing notice, zoning bylaw amendments. The Town of Littleton Planning Board will hold public hearings on Thursday, March 18, 2021, starting at 6:30 p.m. to consider zoning bylaw amendments as described below, sponsored by the Planning Board according to Mass General Law, Chapter 48, Section 5. 6:30 p.m., 40R Smart Growth District. This proposed new zoning bylaw would enable the town to establish 40R smart growth districts, adding Article 31, and 2, establish the Littleton Station Smart Growth Overlay District to promote housing and accessory services in a form that meets the objectives of smart growth as defined in Mass General Law, Chapter 40R, to provide a range of housing types and to benefit from financial incentives provided by Mass General Law, Chapter 40R. 7:15 p.m. It'll be the adult use marijuana delivery bylaw. This proposed amendment in the adult use marijuana establishment would allow for the establishment of delivery service for adult use marijuana by special permit. 8 p.m. It'll be the senior residential development and inclusionary housing zoning bylaw amendments. This proposed amendment to the inclusionary housing bylaw and senior residential development bylaw would clarify that senior residential developments must meet the affordability goals outlined in that bylaw and add a senior apartment use category to the senior residential development bylaw. And number 3, eliminate the requirement for nursing homes to support excess property. Full text of the proposed bylaws and amendments are on file at the town clerk and planning board offices, and they're posted online as well. Comments, people wishing to be heard should appear at this Zoom meeting and provide written comments by yesterday if possible. And it gives details on how to attend this remote meeting. Signed, Jeff Yates, clerk.
We're still waiting for Mark and for Jerry and Jeff. So I guess I'll give a brief overview of how we got to where we are right now. I guess it all started with the master plan. I know Anna likes to hear that we talked about a more diversified housing stock for the town of Littleton. Cindy's going to give a brief presentation in a few minutes that shows that we do not have a diversified housing stock in the town of Littleton and the consequences of not having a diversified housing stock. So over 2 years ago, we got a grant from the state government, the state offices to do a study of the train station. We call it the train station area. We had Judy Barrett do a conceptual idea of what a build-out would look like, the ramifications of what that build-out would be. We had public meetings on that. We started a committee with members of the planning board, members of the select board, and members of the general public. We went from that to we hired a consultant to finalize what we had. And after speaking with members of the select board, Anthony, Joe Layden on the select board, as well as Cindy and Chuck the Coast, it was decided that we wanted to go with the 40R. 40R has been done in other towns. It gives us a roadmap of what to expect. It involves the state, it involves incentives and financing from the state. And we thought that this would be the best way to go to start working on getting more diversified housing stock. This is sort of like what we did at the Point. It took 5 to 6 years to get the Point rezoned to what it is now, so that we went from office buildings to retail. This is not going to happen overnight. It's a process. This is really the first finalized step in the process to start getting the bylaw fine-tuned. There are some changes that we are contemplating before town to have you vote on it in Springtown meeting. We're going to have more meetings on that well before that, and we're fine-tuning with Mark Ransicott with MAPC to get. I'm going to give you all the alphabet DHCD on board to make sure that that everything we're doing, it fits with the 40R As I said before, it's been done in a number of towns. It's been done in Plymouth. It's been done in, Joe worked on it in, I'm going to say Georgetown. It's not Georgetown. It's Grafton. I knew Grafton. And so it's not new to the permitting process and to the state. And with that, I see that we have Jeff here. We're still waiting for Jerry, but it'd be nice, Cindy, you have a brief presentation that shows you why we have no diversified housing and the consequences of that issue. Do you want to give us a quick talk like you did about a month ago?
Sure. Thank you, Mr. Chair. So I do have a presentation, albeit it might not be that brief. I did the best I could to cut it back. It's just so much information. So just a quick preview. The Littleton Affordable Housing Trust, I am vice chair of that committee. We contracted with Mass Housing Development, a consultant, to take all the reports and studies that have been done over the years for the town of Littleton with respect to housing, our senior population, and we gave them all this information and we said, please go through it, decipher it, and come up with some sort of summary to assist us with really being able to share with the public what is affordable housing in the town of Littleton and why there is a need for it. So I do have a presentation that I will share. I'll go through it as quickly as possible. So let me see if I can just share my screen. And hold on a second. Hold on. Hold on a minute. I want to just make sure I get the right one. Hold on. Reading view. All right. Can you see that or not?
Not yet, no.
All right. Sorry. Hold on. All right. Let me see if we can do. All right, good. Here we go. Can you see that?
Yep.
Okay. So I hope this is the right one. Housing Understanding Needs in 01460. So just a quick summary, 15% of our housing stock in the town of Littleton is rental housing. There's only a 4% vacancy rate in our rental housing stock. And just as a way of background, over the past 18 years, there were 656 permits were issued for new single-family homes. Only 197 building permits were issued for multifamily units, 144 of which were for 15 Great Road Village. So as you can see, we stopped building multi-unit housing, and clearly now there is a shortage of rental housing in the town of Littleton. The median home value for the town of Littleton is $510,000. The median home value for a condo is $436,100, and the median gross income is $1,354. As many of you, I'm sure, will not be surprised to know there's currently bidding wars going on now for property in Littleton and surrounding communities, especially a home in this $436,000 range. Many homes are going for thousands of dollars more than the asking price. So we, as I stated, have an unbalanced housing stock. Littleton currently offers very few housing choices outside of traditional single-family units. Age groups 25 to 34 and 60 plus are most affected by the lack of housing options in Littleton. So income versus housing, how much does it cost to live in the town of Littleton? So in my prior presentation, we talked about 80% AMI, and I don't think a lot of people really understood what that meant. So AMI is the area median income. It's a benchmark used to determine income eligibility for affordable housing. So the AMI for the town of Littleton, it presently is $119,000. Housing is considered affordable when it accounts for 30% or less of a household's income, and 30% or less of your income is used for housing. This is the 2020 income limit, medium income limit from HUD. As you can see, for the 50%, very low income, extremely low, and then low, which is the 80% AMI, a family of four, their income would have to be $96,250 or less to qualify for affordable housing. And so this is a model. This is from the Hager Homestead. These values are from 2019. The slide previously that I showed you was from 2020. Those figures have been updated, but just so that you can see, for an affordable one-bedroom unit at Hager Homestead for 60% AMI, the sale price is $151,300, and the income for the necessary income for that would need to be $47,402. That's for a one-bedroom. For a two-bedroom, it would be $53,362. So for 80% AMI, which is more of what we've been talking about, the necessary income for a one-bedroom would need to be $62,480, and for a two-bedroom, it would need to be $70,290. So those are for affordable housing units in the town of Littleton. Those would need to be your income requirements. So as you will see, for the town of Littleton, the number of senior households earning between $20,000 to $75,000 is significant. That is in the box on the left of the screen. And also, if you go to the right side, you can see that adults ages 25 or younger are also earning between $20,000 and $75,000, as well as adults 25 to ages 44. Their earning potential in that same age income level is significant. So we're looking at it between the number of people in the town of Littleton who live here who earn between $20,000 and $75,000, seniors 65 and older, and young adults ages 25, even as up to as old as 44 is significant. So we talked about earlier about being cost burdened. And that means you spend more than 30% of your income on your household living and expenses. You can see the number of cost burdened households in the town of Littleton in those same age groups that I mentioned on the slide previously. We're looking at the 15 to 24 range, 25 to 34, and then the 65 plus. All of those figures, percentages increase in both of those age groups throughout all of these different scenarios of cost burden households in the town of Littleton. So we're going to talk about the senior sell-off. The senior sell-off, as you know, there's many seniors who live in Littleton who wish to stay and live in their community. They're living in houses that are too large for them with many empty bedrooms, and they can't afford to downsize their living accommodations because there's no place for them to go. So by creating more reasonably priced rental housing, we could attract both younger workers with no children or small families, or older households wishing to downsize through rental housing opportunities. And when that occurs, what is referred to as the senior sell-off, it would also free up other homes in the town of Littleton, multi-bedroom homes for families who currently are looking to relocate and move to the town of Littleton. So 93% of our housing stock consists of single-family homes. 80% of Littleton seniors are living in single-family homes. 30% of seniors live alone, and 65% of those seniors living alone own their house. 50% of our senior households are considered low income, and population projections indicate that as many as 500 seniors are likely to need age-friendly housing or some sort of assisted living in the future. So as we just mentioned, bedrooms up to, I don't know what this slide is. So a number of bedrooms make up 3+ bedrooms households with 3 or more bedrooms make up 2/3 of Littleton's housing stock. But families with children occupy fewer than half of them. And nearly 1/3 of the 3+ bedroom owner occupied units are headed by someone 55 or older, and nearly 16% by someone 70 years or older. This is another significant slide that people should pay attention to. As you can see, this is from the Littleton Station report itself. There is a sharp decline in residents ages 20 through 34 in the town of Littleton. This is our workforce. These are young adults who grew up here. As you can see in the 15 to 19 age group, we're above the state average. And then there's a sharp decline when they, I'm going to assume, go away to college and, you know, want to return to Littleton. There's just no housing opportunities for them here in the town of Littleton. And I know there's many college age and young adults presently still living with their parents who would wish to stay in the town of Littleton, but are unable to do so because there's no housing available to them. The other reason this is a concern that there's about affordable housing, not only for our seniors, but also young adults who grew up here and want to remain in town, is the people that work in Littleton is another demographic we need to pay attention to. There's over 3,000 people who work in the town of Littleton who earn less than 80% AMI. There's only 7 industries in the town of Littleton which would allow for a householder to rent at the median rental income without being cost burden. Most local employer wages would not permit the purchase of a median valued home. And based on the town of Littleton starting wages, there's limited or no housing opportunities for those who provide essential services for our community. And a majority of our senior households are considered low income. So the conclusion to my report is that we need to be concerned about our declining population of 18 to 34-year-olds. And we need to also be concerned about the number of people who work in the town of Littleton who cannot afford to live here. Their average local income is less than 80% AMI. And as you can see, that's $67,400. The highest starting salary for a town of Littleton employee, that's our administrative, first responders, dispatch, school and highway, is $54,588. And I just want to emphasize that starting salary. Certainly there's a lot of growth potential for someone to who wants to work in the town of Littleton and grow their career. 50% of senior households in Littleton are considered low income and income eligible for affordable housing. As you can see in that slide, and 40% of senior households are considered very low income, 50%, they earn 50% of AMI or less. So who can't afford to live in Littleton? We need to remember the people that we rely on every day for services for our community, as well as people that work at all of these local establishments that we also rely on every day for services in our community, as well as our seniors who who grew up here, who have contributed to our community in many ways, and they want to stay in the community that's familiar to them, that they know and love, just like we do. So that's another reason that we really need to consider the Littleton Station project, why it is important for our community and the town of Littleton. Thank you.
Thank you, Cindy. So that, in a nutshell, is why we're here. Our consultants over the years have told us the only way we're going to get affordability in Littleton is either higher density, which is what we're proposing, and incentives from the state, which, because we're trying to put this near the train station, there's all different kinds of agencies that have money set aside so that we can buy down the affordability for this project. We're looking at mixed use out here. We're looking at apartments, both affordable and market rate. We're looking at townhouses, both affordable and market rate. We're looking at single family housing for seniors and first-time home buyers at both affordable and market rate. And the reason that we're doing this is because, like Cindy pointed out, if we don't do anything, the seniors who've been at our planning board meetings for 10 years asking for affordable housing so they can stay in Littleton, stay with their friends, age in place in a town that they've grown up in and have supported for 20, 30, 40, 50 years, they can stay here. They can't find anything. They can't buy anything. We need to come up with a solution. Our senior bylaw does not give us the affordability that we're looking for the seniors. So this is one way to do it. And also the first-time home buyers or young kids who we've put them through school, they've come back, and as Cindy alluded to, they're now living in our basements. I mean, if I asked the 62 attendees here to raise their hand if we were at a regular meeting and not a Zoom meeting, I'm sure a fair amount of the people in there could tell us seniors that are either living back with their parents, or they're living with their senior parents, or kids that can't find a place to stay in the town of Littleton and are back at home. So this is not something we did in a vacuum. This is a real need that we have in the town of Littleton, that if we don't address it, we're going to lose the senior population in the town. And as you can see, the young population in the town is already leaving and not being able to stay in Littleton. So that's why we're doing this. I know there's a bunch of people on here and everyone's going to have their hands up. You're going to talk about traffic. You're going to talk about the horrible condition on Foster Street. We're taking that into consideration. We know that. Joseph Layden, I keep saying your name, I butcher your name, I'm sorry, is working on it. Anthony's working on it. The select board's working on it. We're trying to get money from the state to address all of these issues. That will be part of all of this. It's the first flush of a bylaw that we think is going to be very beneficial for the town of Littleton to keep diversified. We need diversified housing stock. We do not have it. We need affordability for the seniors and first-time home buyers, and we do not have that. So I'm going to open it up. We have a brief slide presentation to show you where we're talking about, and then we can go into a little bit of detail, a little more detail. We have Mark Ransicott from MAPC if we want to talk about the high density, the medium density, but Maren has we're going to slide present you to death so that maybe you guys all the answers will be on the slides, but Maren's going to start with the slides. That doesn't look like slides, Maren. I'm going to keep. Oh. There we go.
Sorry about that, my mistake. So here we are at the public hearing, open to the public hearing. You're hopefully familiar with the area for the 40R district. This is the 245 Foster Street parcel, and this is a portion of the 191 Foster Street parcel that's attached to the nursing home. As Mark noted, this is not in a vacuum. It was a result of the Littleton Master Plan and the Littleton Station Vision Plan. And here's just some of the results, the outreach and the results of all the public input that went into the vision plan. So then the town planning board and Littleton Station Area Committee came to the decision point of, do we do this through a 40A special permit process, or do we propose a 40R smart growth district? Decision was made after considerable discussion to go forward with a 40R smart growth district. And there are design standards that have been drafted by consultant Peter Flinker at Dodson and Flinker. And where are we in the 40R process? We're here. We drafted the zoning bylaw and the design guidelines, and we're here at the public hearing process. You can see there's quite a bit left to do. And I jumped right over the part where Joe was going to weigh in on what 40R is and can mean for Littleton.
Thanks, Maren. Sorry, I just heard a little feedback. So in looking at the difference between conventional zoning, as Maren said, 40A process and 40R. 40R is a relatively new tool that the state has created that is specifically for addressing needs that we're sort of discussing right now: mixed use, affordable housing, compact design, trying to really minimize spreading out housing units across the towns and really consolidate around infrastructure. So for example, transit-oriented development around the commuter rail, this is a priority that the state has identified. And it also is funneling a lot of resources into these types of developments. I hope people can hear me because my screen just went blank and I'm just keeping on talking, hoping that I'm coming through. Can people hear me?
Yeah, yes, Joe.
Literally, I have a black screen right now, so I'm just talking to a black screen. So with 40R, one of the main things that Maren mentioned is that it comes with design guidelines that you have to develop, and that's a way that towns are really able to make sure that development has a character that it really wants to reinforce, something that reflects the town, something that people can feel reflects Littleton. And that's something that really provides a lot of guidance and developers a lot of direction in how to craft a development. With all types of development, whether it be a subdivision or higher density, there's always questions as far as infrastructure, impacts to roads. Is there sewer capacity? How does wastewater get handled? What is the impact on water? What is the impact on schools? One of the benefits of 40R, because it is a tool that the state is really trying to promote, they guide a lot of financial resources, grant programs to communities that are adopting 40R. It ends up being a real partnership. In some of the recent legislation that was approved and signed by the governor, really provides a lot of resources for towns. So if there is the need for improving foster or improving water, there are infrastructure grants that are able to be applied for to support and to make a project a reality. Also, one of the things with 40R is it actually has what are called 40S payments. So if you can envision for a typical residential unit, the amount of revenue that's generated in taxes, very often the amount of revenue that's generated doesn't actually represent the full cost it is to educate a child in the school system. 40S actually makes up that difference, that delta between what is generated from revenue and what it costs, so that it helps to supplement costs to the town for any kids that are within a 40R development. That's just one of the carrots that the state uses. The other carrots, as I mentioned, are through availability of grant programs that then funnel resources to address issues for infrastructure. One of the last things is that it's something that aligns with the town's smart growth initiatives as laid out with the master plan, and can also spur additional economic development to help provide additional opportunities for businesses within town, provide housing for employees, for people graduating from high school or college that want to continue to live in town. And it's a great way to provide needed housing while also taking advantage of transportation, such as the commuter rail, and other needs for infrastructure. So with that, I'll turn it back over to Maren.
Yeah, thank you, Joe. I appreciate that input. So where are we in the 40R process here at the public hearing? And the town is looking for your input and then onward to your support at town meeting. Contact information for myself and for Joe as questions come up.
Thank you, Maren. Oh, up to 71 people. Great. So you've seen the map. you've seen the three different areas, one of them being we want to put high density is apartments. The medium is townhouses, single family homes, condos, a mixed. We haven't etched the line in stone where one stops and one starts as we finish the process of what's the ideal balance for that. So that's why that's still sort of in flux. We do have the other low density that we are, it's still on the plan. We're not sure where it's going with that because we were hoping that we could engage the nursing home to put a facility up there to augment what they already have there with assisted living, independent living, Alzheimer's living. All of that would be an ideal location to add that to what they already have, but we have yet to get the nursing home on board with it. So there's a number there. There's a number of units there, but by the time we get to town meeting, we'll have a better idea whether that's going to be on there or not. But it's just one of those areas we need to fine tune. Does the board have anything they want to add, or do you want to open it up to public hearing? We've seen it. We've seen the presentation from the Littleton Station Committee. We did a presentation to the select board, so I think we're pretty good with it. I just know we're gonna have a lot of people in. I have no problem with having everybody get a chance to speak their piece. We do know there's a traffic issue. We're working on it. As Joe said, we're looking to get funding from the state for infrastructure. That is the rebuilding of and repair renovation to Foster Street, the whole area of Foster Street. We're looking at a lot of different scenarios, more crosstown connect, more open space up there, more trails. Unless the board has any questions, or Cindy, do you have anything you want to add? I think we should probably hear from the residents in the town of Littleton. Delisa, are you good?
Yep. No, I think we should hear from the residents.
Jeff, are you all right? Yep, that was a yes. Anna? Yeah. Cindy, you're all right?
Yep.
And Joe and Anthony and Mark are available for comments or questions to be answered. So, Maren, I guess we'll use people raise their hand and pick them as they come in.
Okay, yep, I'll just go down the list. Kay Mayo.
Hi.
Good evening. Thank you for being with us.
Am I on video too, or just audio?
Yeah, no, just audio.
Just a moment, I can promote. Hang on.
Well, that's okay. I don't mind audio only.
Okay.
Yep, everyone hear me okay?
Yes, thank
All
you.
right, thanks for the opportunity to speak. I grew up in the town of Littleton and was recently back after having been away for many years. And it really does stepping away to see how the town has changed, unfortunately, in most cases for the worse. Littleton ranks 6th out of 351 towns and cities. I'll repeat, 6th out of over 351 towns and cities in Massachusetts for the most newly developed land in Massachusetts, according to Mass Audubon, which I think is truly very, very sad. I just wanted to make some follow-up comments on your presentation. First of all, the housing market will soften at some point. I have a real estate license and I own rentals. It's red hot right now in most parts of the country, including Littleton, but that will not last forever. Littleton has plenty of money and does not need grants from the state, quite frankly. When you look at the development I just mentioned, there's new houses going up left and right everywhere. My childhood beloved forest that I once played in now smells like sewer, town forest, which I'm referring to Mill Hill because of the houses back there. My grandmother for over 10 years lived in Pine Tree Park, so I'm very familiar with affordable housing in the town. With any senior complex, there is a lot of turnover there. Residents pass away or they move into nursing homes. The trend now, a lot of times people are building in-law type suites. So again, those two factors, with the statistics you're quoting will change. They're not permanent in terms of the lower inventory because of the reasons I just mentioned. And I also feel your use of diversified housing stock is a euphemism for unchartered development. There's not a lot of log cabins in Littleton. Does that make it not diverse? You can't buy a 1,700 square foot brick ranch house like the one I'm sitting in right now for $280,000. So what? That's just the way the town is. There's plenty of affordable housing as well in nearby towns. It's not just a question of Littleton. I have family that grew up in Lowell, family that grew up in Groton. Littleton, it's not just a question of Littleton or nothing. Littleton has had plenty of development recently. And like I said, it is truly heartbreaking to me as someone who has very strong ties and loves the town. In fact, in my 40 plus years, this is my first ever town meeting that I'm engaged in. I think enough is enough. The town cannot be all things to all people. I also think your statistics on AMI may have been a bit misleading. Seniors may not earn a lot of money. They may have part-time jobs. I'm speaking my own senior mother, but she has savings. So while her income is fairly low, she has savings. And also people are working from home now and will continue to do so post-pandemic. My husband starts a new job working from home only, a remote only job. So the proximity to the commuter rail will not be as important as it once was. And you can read reports on that, certainly. I'm sure most of you are educated on that. The wood industries dominate our region, high tech, so on and so forth. These types of jobs are overwhelmingly now remote only and will continue to be. So my father hopped on the commuter rail, took the train into Boston for his job. That's, I think, going to be a thing of the past. You're not going to see that as much as we once did. And I just ask all of you, what do you want your legacy to be as town employees? Let's hope that you choose to be servants of the people and not servants of the developers, and do not go forward with this project. I mean, let's hear from the other residents and people with ties to the town. Thank you for the opportunity to speak.
Thank you, Mrs. Mayo. I just want to address one thing that you said. Well, a couple of things, but one of them, my legacy, I want to make sure that Littleton is going to be able to attract and keep the people that have been here for 40 years. The people that can't afford to live in a house now. They might have a house, they might have no income, have to sell their house, and there's no place for them to go. Everything that's being built is being $800,000 houses out there. No small little starter houses for first-time home buyers, and nothing for the seniors. The seniors have been coming to the planning board meetings for 10 years telling us, you're forcing us out of Littleton. You're forcing us out.
That's not true. My mother is a senior in the town of Littleton. In fact, she's on the call. I don't believe she's speaking, but what you're saying is completely misleading.
Oh, okay.
My grandmother lived in Pine Tree Park for over 10 years. I know Tina Mater. I'm very familiar with that. So when you say...
Your grandmother's lucky in that she has a unit there. They're waiting.
Well, I ask you again, what do you want your legacy to be? Is it developers? Is that who you speak for? Are you a servant of developers?
We want diversified housing in the town of Littleton.
Mr. Chair, can we move on?
At what cost?
Yes, let's move on.
At what cost, Marky?
Okay.
You know what?
Yeah, the next, Matt Nordhaus, let me, just a moment. Matthew Nordhaus.
Thank you, Maren. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Matthew Nordhaus, Star Hill. I just want to emphasize I'm appearing tonight as a resident, not as a member of any board. I submitted a letter asking to amend the bylaw slightly. I would like to encourage to include a pre-application discussion with CONSCOM, in addition to the already existing pre-application discussion with the planning board. The change would not grant any authority to CONSCOM. It would not ask them to do anything that's outside of their jurisdiction. But given the environmental sensitivity of this area, the goal would be to have an overarching holistic environmental view of the development there, and to use, local citizens who are subject matter experts on environmental issues to give guidance. And the ultimate goal would be to save the developer and the planning board time and money. And that's what I have.
Thank you. As you know, Matthew, we're in the early stages of it. We haven't even seen a formalized plan yet. I do know that conservation was out there on a site walk with Myron yesterday, so
Yeah.
they are aware of the site. So we brought them in as early as we can to see the existing conditions. We don't have a firm plan, but obviously as we move forward, we will definitely look at what you've sent us, especially given the fact that you were on the Littleton train station committee as well. So thank you for your input.
Thank you.
Jim Tully, Tule.
Can you hear me? Great. So I live on Foster, have for a good number of years. I thank you all for the presentation. I have a couple of questions regarding this whole development. So I guess my first question is, has anyone really looked at yet the impact on schools and or other town resources with a development this large? And if so, what were the findings?
Who wants to address it? I know.
Actually, in the frequently asked questions, I've been pointing to MAPC's report from 2017 that shows a disjoint between the number of new housing units in the region, city by city, town by town, and the number of new students, increased student population, where Littleton had an 11% increase in number of households. We had a 3% increase in student population. That said, we know that school department is constantly monitoring the student population and the needs of the students who are in Littleton schools.
Okay.
We will continue to do so.
Okay. Yeah. So my real question is, you're putting in, let's call it 200 apartments. Let's call it 50 or 60 townhouses. Let's say you get 100 kids out of that. I guess my concern would be whether or not the town can handle that sort of an increase. Let's call it 200 kids. Is that something that Littleton can handle effectively? And again, I don't need an exact answer right now. I think these are things that I'm asking you folks to please be aware of. Look, probably by the time this is done, my kids will be out of school. But I do know that, having to build a new school, having to get additional teachers, infrastructure, whatever else can be costly. And I get that there are grants. I'm just worried about sort of the other parts of the town that may not be up to par if this size development goes in, and as well with everything else that's sort of being built now. I guess my other concern for this, my other concern is strictly for Foster. I think I would very strongly ask one of two things. If this development does go in, Foster needs to have, from front to back, it has to have walkways. It has to have a place for people to be. The only year in the 15 years, let's call it, that I've been here, I have had 1 year where my mailbox has not been toppled over by a car. And that's this past year because of COVID. There was a girl, I think, 3 or 4 years back when across the street from the train station, they were trying to put in a strip mall kind of thing, which I think somehow that all blew up and went away in itself. But we have to consider the amount of traffic coming in. And I would like to be sure that the people that, some being town employees who are walking back and forth to the train, have a safe and easy way to do it. And lastly, if there's a possibility of having some other entrance slash exit out of the development off of Foster Street, I think might be a great idea. I think that's about all I really have. But, and if any of you have any comments toward it, feel free. But I appreciate you all being here tonight and putting this out.
Thank you. Thank you, Jim. Anna, you want to address that?
Actually, no, just would like to thank Mr. Toole, and also just wanted to mention that at 7:15, which is now, we do need to open the next hearing, and then we can resume.
Yeah, we need to open and continue that, Mara, until when we'll probably take another 15, 20 minutes of calls. There's still 13 people waiting in call yet, so do you want to?
Yeah, I'm done.
Thank you.
Joanne Derry?
Well, what do you want to do with 7:15? You want to just?
Yeah, you just did. We had one notice for all 3 hearings.
Oh, okay. All right.
Thank you.
No problem.
I'm
Thanks.
sorry, I didn't respond. I'm sorry.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, thank you.
Oh, thank you so much. I have a couple of comments. First, I just wanted to say it's kind of unfortunate that the chairman was speaking of presenting us to death, because it makes it kind of clear what the chairman's intention is. And it makes me wonder if this is really a meeting for citizen input and if the board is really interested in hearing the public's views. That said, my view is Foster has been designated a scenic roadway. I don't know how you're going to keep it scenic after it gets so-called improved. I think that this project is going to increase vastly congestion in town. I think it's also going to increase my taxes. I've lived here for decades. My taxes keep going up. The best choice with land that is currently empty is to leave it empty. And any form of development causes taxes to go up. This amount of development, I would assume, is going to require a new school. So I don't know that, the money that supposedly we're going to get from the state for doing this development is really going to be enough to pay for a new school and try to make Foster Street stay scenic. My other question is, why would we dig up a new piece of perfectly good ground? Why not repurpose the old, nearly empty deck buildings that are at the train station already? There can't be a whole bunch of taxes coming out of those buildings since they're mostly vacant. So that's a place where we could do it without having to dig up a new piece of ground. I still think we shouldn't put in a development this big. And also Monarch Drive, years ago, there was talk of putting some kind of a project down Monarch Drive. That never occurred. Why not put it down there? In my view, the developer of this project is going to make a lot of money. The landowner who sells this land is going to make a lot of money. Many lawyers who work on the project and many realtors who sell these units are going to make a lot of money. And the taxpayers like me, we are just going to pay a lot of money. Thanks for listening.
Thank you.
Let's see, Charlotte Russell, just a moment. Charlotte, you should be able to go ahead.
Okay. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, Charlotte, go ahead.
3 points to make. First of all, I really sympathize with the people who have spoken about growing up here and seeing changes in the town. I've spent 67 years here, and some of the changes are hard to take. And my parents were seniors who were able to stay in town. However, I actually do know a number of people who have not been able to stay in town because of the lack of affordable housing here. I have lived here all my life, and I've seen a definite change in the diversity of economic strata during my time in the town. I feel it's definitely weighted to a lot of high-end homes and more people with a lot of income and fewer people, especially in the ranges that Cindy mentioned. Younger people are just not able to afford to live here anymore. So I'm in favor of more low-income housing and more density. I think the most expensive housing, we all know, is single-family housing, expensive, I mean, in terms of the town, and the impact on schools and other town services. And I don't see large single-family homes slowing down in this town very much. I think we're going to continue to get plenty of those. And I would like to see a balance of affordable housing and more density. And so I'm basically in favor. My other 2 points are, I do live on Foster Street, and I have a grave concern about the portion of Foster Street that I live on. I'm probably not going to like whatever happens, but I also try to take a long view and know I won't be here forever, and I think it's important to have access from the common to the train station. But the section of Foster Street, particularly from Tehadawon Road to Harwood Avenue, has a lot of wetlands and a lot of historic features. And I've been disappointed to see what happened with the Vilkins development, in that those historic walls, stone walls, were not rebuilt. So I do hope that the conservation and the historic nature of this section of the road will be taken into consideration. I can't personally see how the road can be expanded in this area without doing damage to those 2 things, but I'm trying to keep an open mind about it. And that brings me to my 3rd point. Communication with the residents around here about the reconstruction of the corner at Foster and Tehadawon, where I'm ground zero, was abysmal. And I know that there were some unanticipated problems with that, but that makes me have even more concern about this project going forward, or whatever projects do go forward. Case in point, I had to mask up and go out during the summer to see who was traipsing around my property. I got no notice that there were going to be people surveying the wetlands. I'll add that that happened in the middle of a drought. But anyway, I know work has been done to assess this area, and I'd like to know the selectmen's thoughts and the planning board's thoughts about the street. And I'd like to know how communication is going to happen with residents on the street going forward. Thanks very much for listening.
Thank you. Thank you, Charlotte. Mara?
Yep, Ali Rico.
Hello, are you there? Allie, can you unmute yourself?
Sorry,
There you go.
it kind of rejoined me and I didn't know what was happening. Hi, my name is Allie. I am a former resident of Littleton. I went to Littleton Public Schools. I lived in Littleton until I was 18. I will never be able to afford to move back to Littleton as long as the town does not do exactly what you want to do. So I wanted to call in and express my support for this project. I think it's great that the town is looking into how to diversify its housing stock, especially to welcome more low-income families into town. I just really wanted to express how thrilled I am to hear that you guys are really trying to make the town a more welcoming place for people that either can't afford single-family homes, or for whatever reason, they have no interest in owning a single-family home. I know I certainly don't, and I love coming back to Littleton. I have a lot of nostalgic feels for it. I walk around town every year and kind of get like a little tear in my eye because I love it so much. But I do think that it needs to keep changing and evolving and be more welcoming for more people in town. I have friends that recently just bought a home on Goldsmith, and the only way that they were able to afford that home was because one of their parents gave it to them. And even now, they still feel the weight of owning that home. As somebody, we're all in that 25 to 44 range. I'm 32 years old, and I definitely won't be able to move back to town unless something like this happens. And I do just want to second what Jim Toole said about making sure that Foster Street is more welcoming to everybody with this development going forward. You know, it's really hard to walk on Foster Street if you don't want to drive or don't own a car. So figuring out how to make that street more accessible for pedestrians and for cyclists would be great. And I also agree that there should definitely be a second entrance to the development just to make it easier for people to get in and out so there aren't super crazy traffic jams. But yeah, so thank you for letting me have an opportunity to speak as a former resident.
Thank you, Ellen. Lauren?
Yeah, Mike Zeldin.
Mr. Zeldin, are you there? Can you unmute?
I certainly can unmute. I can even go further. Well,
Let's start with unmute.
yes, I can talk to you from my hideaway here in Crete. So thank you very much for having me on, but more importantly, I want to thank you, each and every one of you who's labored long and hard in not just discussing it, but hearing from people and investigating how best to proceed. Full disclosure, my name is Michael Zeldin. I used to serve on, actually, I was part of the group that prepared and submitted the master plan for Littleton. It seems like thousands of years ago, but it's not that many. And I subsequently had served as chairman of the implementation committee, which now operates somewhat differently, but nonetheless, I have a certain perspective on this. First of all, the reason I'm very glad to see you moving this along is because there are actually, at the moment, only 2 places in Littleton where high density or higher density, and I say that advisedly because, as it's already been characterized, our housing stock is not even close to using the word dense. It's basically single family homes well separated from each other. There's 2 places in this particular area that for which you're looking at 40R is one of them. And the other one obviously is the common. And I couldn't think of 2 very different kinds of places looking for 2 very different kinds of solutions to diversification of housing. I would like to make a contribution to helping all of you and the town moving forward in the following way, that the one component not discussed at all, only I think Mark sort of alluded to it. I don't know how far he wants to go with it, but there's one component in the structure of how development, especially low cost or lower cost housing goes proceeds, and that's the industry itself. And what I mean by that is this is a tough one. That is the construction industry and the banking industry associated with it have a certain, shall we say, built-in nostalgia for the good old days, and they're hanging on it for dear life. The methods of construction are known to be outmoded. There are already less expensive ways to build multi-story structures more than suitable for living in and at much lower cost, and yet the industry resists. So I'd like to suggest that in addition to thinking about diversifying the housing in Littleton, we think about diversifying the developers that we bring to Littleton. And what I mean by that is aggressively reaching out across the country and telling people what you have in mind for the beginning, especially now since you're starting almost from scratch. You're basically creating a zone without really putting much of, shall we say, description into it, really by comparison. And you might be pleasantly surprised just how many developers and investors and others from around the country could be interested, depending on your level of interest and energy, in taking a serious look at what is feasible in reaching the goals that you have in mind that you've expressed so well tonight. So, full disclosure that before I left these various activities for the town, I did in fact make contact with some of the developers, but I believe at the level that you're operating at, it's more appropriate that you do your own background work and do your own contacts so that everything is, shall we say, from the top, from the folks who are in the front lines. But let me encourage you to diversify your thinking in terms of how you, as it were, think about and begin discussing with the public about how you want to take this development forward. And I think a lot of information can be had from the more forward-looking developers and investors across the country. The second thing is really pedestrian by comparison. Just one comment. I hope that you employ someone other than our esteemed water department to take a look at the, shall we say, the challenges in the various different areas that you're thinking about creating the zone for what I call gray water. I'm now speaking as a hardened veteran of the Board of Health. All I have to tell you is what I've learned is that what's underneath the ground all around this town is really quite different, even within one development. And from what I've seen, that's what you're looking at in the area of interest for the 40R. The reason I'm suggesting that you look at that is because that's one of the first things that astute developers and investors think about. That is, what kind of infrastructure barriers are there going to be, because then that means to them dollars. So thank you very much for all the work that you've done, and I wish you luck going forward. And thank you again for the time. Thank you.
Thank you, Mike.
Let's see, Chris L. just coming on now.
Chris, you want to unmute yourself?
Sorry, yep. So this is Chris Lauthenberger. I live on Foster Street. I have the distinction of owning the property that will border both this section and the nursing home section. Our property's kind of irregularly shaped on the back. I just want to talk a little bit about some of the concerns we have. My wife and I moved here about 5 years ago, specifically to Littleton for its rural feel. We looked all over. We moved from southern Indiana. We looked from Marlboro. We even looked on the south side of Boston because of the commute into Cambridge. One of the main reasons we picked the property we did was because of its rural feel. It's not urban. We weren't looking to move to an urban area. Understanding the need for low cost housing, although I have a couple of concerns. One is, people have noted, strictly the condition of Foster Street. I walk on Foster Street every day, and it's in pretty bad shape. Like, not just pedestrian path, but even the road is pretty much just falling apart. Like I said, I've been here 5 years. I've seen really no improvement to our section. Like I said, I'm less than probably about a quarter mile from the train station on Foster Street towards town. It's in pretty rough condition. That's a concern. I'd like to see some improvements. I know we hear a lot about the plan for improvement, but we're not really seeing anything on our side. So we've been hearing it for about 4 years now, and nothing has really changed for us. So I'm not sure if that's a 10-year project, going to be a 20-year project, or what that looks like going forward. I'd like to see that maybe start prior to starting another development and moving a lot of people into this area. Another concern I have is just the zoning back there. I know there is an offset in the bylaw written right now where it says 50 feet. Unfortunately, like I said, my property is also one of the ones that does not have the wetland offset. So I'm looking at a 35 to 50 foot building, 15 yards off my property line. That concerns me a little bit. Like I said, understand the need for affordable housing, but when I look out my backyard right now, I see Oak Hill, I see the Sunset, and I'll be looking at multiple, maybe 5, 6, 7, 35 to 50 foot story buildings right behind, or 50 foot buildings right behind my house. Like I said, 15, 17 yards off my property line. A little concerning. I haven't heard a lot about property value. I read the study about devaluation or no devaluation of property based on studies, but it doesn't seem to include any real rural areas. It's mainly more urban type of area. So I mean, I understand. I'd like to see a little bit bigger offset, but ultimately, free market capitalists let people build on their property what they want. Just like to voice our concerns a little bit. I'd like to see a little more of an offset back there. and a little less dense. The density is pretty high. I looked at the town of Littleton, the census for the town of Littleton estimates for 2019, looking at what 2.7 some odd people per household. I know we don't expect these to probably hit quite that number, but if we do develop it to the point where you're talking about, that's a lot of people, as we've discussed. So I'm a little concerned about the density, the amount of people, the condition of our road, and commercial space. There's a lot of commercial space that's empty in Littleton. It's kind of sad to see. We like the point. That was one of the reasons we moved here, having that draw to the area, being able to go and do those things. Seeing it sit empty for as long as we have, a big chunk of it sit empty is a little concerning. The buildings near the train station towards Taylor Street, predominantly empty since we moved here. Still concerning that we're not drawing more business to the area. And I don't know, I'm not sure what can be done about that. I just wanted to kind of voice my concerns. With the losing money on my property value doesn't taste good, but I do understand we need affordable housing in Littleton. But it hurts when some of it will be at my expense, I'm sure, understanding that we do need that additional housing. So that's all I have. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Chris.
Eric Krupnik is on his way in. There you go.
Eric, you want to unmute yourself?
Yep. Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Great. And I just want to thank everyone here for the time and the presentations they put forward. So I am going to actually speak as a member of that 24 to 34-year-old age group. So my wife and I actually moved to the town because we felt that if we wanted to live in a more urban area, there were plenty of opportunities to live even closer to a city or a more urban area. And just increasing the population density of the town, what seems like approximately 10%, if we go off the 2 to 3 people a unit or a townhouse times the number of residencies you're looking to put in. And so, I don't understand how Littleton is equipped to handle such a growth spurt after people have been saying that there's already been a fair number of growth spurts in the town and population increases. I don't believe schools can support it. I don't believe infrastructure can support it. And so I just want to understand how the town expects to handle such a big influx of people in such a short period of time. In terms of proximity to the train and attracting businesses, a lot of these studies were done before the pandemic. I think, there was some value in them beforehand as the pandemic sort of changed society and how we work. I think having that proximity clustered to the train loses its appeal. And so you're really just increasing population density in a small area. So those are a couple concerns that we have.
Thank
Thank
you,
you.
Mr. Krupnik.
Go ahead, Anna.
I was just thanking him.
Oh, thank
Okay,
you.
yeah, Clifford Stevens.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Hi, everybody. Thank you as well for your time. I'm also a Durkee resident, neighbor of the area. Quick question for you, and you may have had this in the master plan, but given this increase in proposed approach, can you clarify if there's going to be any other housing locations related to the Route 2 495? There's obviously a lot of vacancies right near the highway right there. And so I can absolutely understand the need for affordable housing, but just want to understand if this will increase, like this is phase 1, and then we'll have another phase 2 shortly thereafter, because I think that's obviously going to dramatically increase the property. So can someone on the board potentially just give us an update on that? And that's sort of the first question. And then the second question is, can you clarify how much commercial area is planned for in this first phase related to it, or is it just residential? And the reason why I say that is when we bring in that population, are there other services that would be provided that would add to the value of the town, whether that's small farm to table based restaurants or other things like that that could add that as opposed to just density. And therefore there's other income besides just homeowners income related to it. So first question is just based on, are there other phases of additional housing that's planned for in the general proximity of the 495 Route 2? And then secondly, can you clarify the commercial side? And I appreciate your time and also all the hard work. I know there's a lot that goes into this, so thank you.
So I guess I'll start with the first question. The first time we looked at the total project, we looked at a total build out from the train station all the way up Foster Street. All the way to the Kateras property at the end of Taylor. We had a total build out of that, and I think the board pretty much rejected the idea. That's a lot of density there. So the reason we went to the 40R is it's site specific just to this property. That's, this is the only place we're looking at right now. This is it. And this is probably going to be phased. You're not going to get all the housing built at one time. You're going to get it started off. You're probably going to get the higher density first. So it's not going to happen overnight. Littleton historically adds 1,000 people every 10 years. It's been the history of Littleton since the 60s of 1,000 people every 10 years. So this is not really out of character for what we're looking for the next 10 years. It's probably going to take a couple of years to get everything sorted out, get it permitted, and get the state on board before we even see a shovel in the ground. So it's not happening tomorrow. It's not happening next year. It's a couple of years away. To answer your question about the commercial component out there, or the retail component, we put 20,000 square feet there so that we could get something at the train station to have an amenity more for the train station and the people who live there. A convenience center, a small little restaurant, a coffee shop. I don't think you're going to see a bank go out there. That's too far away. I mean, we want retail out there, but we don't anticipate a high volume of retail. I think 20,000 in the grand scheme of things is a relatively small building, but it's big enough so that we could have something, cleaners, things like that would assist the people that live on Foster Street, the people that are moving into this project, and the people that are commuting on the train, and they can get a cup of coffee in the newspaper to jump on the train. That's kind of the retail that we're envisioning out there.
Great. Thank you, Mark. Yeah, that does. I appreciate your time. I would also say if it is an opportunity to maintain the train station as a Littleton resident train station, that will also help a little bit with that population density if we are creating a section that has a little more attractive nature, because there's a lot of commuters that move into that area. That would be ideal, at least during the week, so that you could keep that to Littleton residents. That might help with some of the traffic flow. But appreciate the time. I know there's a lot to consider with everything going on, and would appreciate all the updates, especially for the neighbors in the area too, for Durkee and Foster and everyone, just so we can kind of be really clear on what's happening when. So thank you,
We're
board.
planning more meetings in the next couple of months. And one follow-up to that, there is a part of this proposal that has a parking lot designated just for Littleton residents as part of this proposal as well, just for train commuters from Littleton, because you know how difficult, if you've used the trains, you know how hard it is to get a spot there when the pandemic is finally over and people are going back to work. So there is a section for that, but thank you for your input, and hopefully you'll follow us in the next couple of months as this progresses. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr.
Cindy
Chair, if I
has a
may.
hand up. Can we let Cindy speak?
Yeah,
Lauren?
please. I just wanted to just speak at this point. So I just want to clarify for those that are on the call that the town of Littleton does not own this property. Just based on some of the comments made, it seems like there might be some confusion. We don't own this property. It is privately owned. This project has been the fruition of the efforts of the planning board and the select board to work with developers coming into Littleton so that they will create the type of project that will benefit our community. I was one of the original members of the Littleton Station committee, and we did public forums. We did visioning sessions at the middle school and brought in residents to get their input on what they would like to see in this part of town. So I just wanted to just clarify that for people. This is not a town of Littleton project. This is a private developer's project, and it's the efforts of the planning board and other residents to create or work with the developer proactively to create something there that will benefit our community, as opposed to just having them come in and just build whatever they want. So I just wanted to make sure that residents were aware of that. And there are plans for Foster Street. I will ask Mr. Layden maybe at the end of the meeting to just give a quick update on that. So there's certainly sidewalk improvements and roadway improvements are definitely on the radar and something we've been proactively working on. So I just wanted to mention that quickly. Thank you, Mr. Montanari.
I'd like to just say something else related to what Cindy said, that those of us who are on the Littleton Station Committee, myself, Matthew Nordhaus, none of us have any ties to developers. So, you know, our support for this project is simply because we really feel we need the diversity in housing here for the seniors and the young people. So I think it's important for people to understand that there's nothing for us to gain here.
Okay, we've got 4 more people with comments. Mark and Cheryl Hollinger.
Okay. Hi, thank you. 2 hopefully quick comments. So first, last year there was a lottery for 2 low-income senior housing units at Jones Meadow. There were only 4 applicants, including my father, and at least one of the 4 soon dropped out. Based on that, I don't see a huge demand for low-income senior housing. My other comment is that as a frequent pedestrian myself on Foster Street, I believe sidewalks should be an absolute requirement prior to any approval for a new development of this type, and not an afterthought hinged on possible future state grants. Thank you.
Thank you, Mark. Maren?
Yep, Greg Stanhovic.
Greg, you want to unmute?
Sure.
Thank you.
Hold on, I'm going to go video too. Hi, thanks so much for everybody's time. Appreciate all the preparation. I have a couple thoughts and questions. The first, I wanted to second what Mark said about diversity of thought for the building process. I think one thing I'd love the town to consider is potentially a green building approach. Certainly, I think we all care about the environment. Littleton's a beautiful town, so that would be a consideration I'd like to put on the table. Secondly, I know there was a lot of data about senior housing needs, affordable housing, yet only 25% of the proposed development is being restricted for affordable housing. None, as far as I know, correct me if I'm wrong, is restricted for senior housing. So I'm trying to understand how you sort of, align that up if the whole point and case to develop this area is to create more affordable housing. That's only 25% of that. And I understand that that can be lowered in the process of the planning and development. And then what was the other point I wanted to make? I think that was it. I know there was talk of the population 20 to 30 something. I'd love to see a survey or data about that. I totally appreciate some people moving back with their parents. I can't imagine there's a large population of 20 somethings that want to live in the suburbs. So would love to really understand if there's data to back that up.
I'll read a question about 40R and jurisdiction.
Oh yeah, 40R. The last question I had was, does 40R, does this restrict or change any of the responsibilities of the zoning board? And if so, what is that?
I'm going to throw that one to Joe, the whole thing to Joe. I'll let him, I know he's been waiting patiently to speak.
So just taking the last question first. 40R, well, we talked about tool by the state. It is something that the town has to adopt. Town meeting will consider town meeting article for adoption of the 40R. It does put the planning board in the driver's seat as far as ensuring a development complies with the bylaw, ensuring that a development complies with design guidelines, and making sure that the public process where abutters have a role depending on how the final bylaw is put together, that it maintains that public process. So that's one of the first things is it continues to be a local tool, and the talk about being a state tool. The state has to provide towns, has to enable those tools for us to take advantage of. Many towns have not been as proactive as Littleton has been in trying to utilize tools to meet its housing needs. This second question, as far as there are some statutory requirements we have to have as far as affordability, but there are things that we're able to work on with the developer for providing additional flexibility, whether it be workforce housing, things that are maybe a little bit more than affordable, but meet the needs of teachers, policemen, firefighters within town, and same thing with seniors. So there's different tools that we're able to implement, and different ways that we can provide those housing options that are above and beyond what is also within the language of the bylaw as drafted now. Was there a third part of the question that you asked?
The other part of the question I heard was where some of the data was from, and a lot of that is housed at, Cindy, help me out, the Data Town.
Data Town.
Yeah,
Mass
yeah.
Housing Partnership, my favorite thing. Data Town.
Yeah, thank you.
Yep.
And also, it was recommended within the master plan as far as providing opportunities for housing for a variety of age groups. I know myself as a young professional starting out as a planner, I did not want to live in the city. I grew up in smaller towns. I was looking for options. This was in Central Mass for smaller towns within a smaller town. There's a lot of people that are looking for housing, and they're looking for a variety of housing. That's, I think, partly what we're trying to achieve here.
Thank you. Okay, we have three more. We'd like to kind of try to wrap it up for the first meeting.
Yeah, Kathleen Kroll, Croal.
Hi, it's Kathleen Kroll. Thank you for letting me speak. So I live in the area. I have concerns regarding the sheer number of units that are proposed in the area. Of course, we're concerned about the traffic in the area, but for me, one of my main concerns is the police, fire, and the emergency services. Would the part of the plan be to increase the capacity for those in our town? I have a family member who could require me to call 911 and have them come. And right now they were able to come within a few minutes. Would you be able to ensure that, would we have an extra fire truck or an extra ambulance to accommodate these people, these extra houses? My other question is the 40R zoning change. Is that something that the town will get to vote on? Is there a vote that we would have to go to or go online and vote to approve a zoning change? What's the process for that? And if there is a vote, when would the vote be?
Okay, then I'll take the second one. That's the easy one. We're hoping for Springtown meeting, and yes, you do have to come and vote on this. It's a zoning article. It's going to need a vote at town meeting, and as I understand right now, town meeting is scheduled for June 12th. Is that the correct date? Saturday, Friday or Saturday? Is that a Saturday? Saturday, June 12th. So yes, this is not by any stretch of the meeting a done deal. We need the town to support this and to vote in favor of it at the June 12th town meeting, and we will be having more meetings up until June 12th. So thank you for your question. Now, the second one was,
The first one,
the first one, excuse me, was the police and fire, I think.
emergency services.
Yes, whether Anthony or Joe can speak to that.
So I'll take that one. So one of the things with any development is that as we go forward, we're going to be getting the opportunity for the police department and fire department to comment on the development. Right now, we don't have a development. We have a bylaw that we're trying to pull together, and the planning board is trying to evaluate different areas that can be higher density, medium, and lower density. So that will have an impact on the total number of units that ultimately could potentially be developed.
Okay.
You know, and Mark also had an excellent point that you know, if it was a 200 unit development, those aren't happening within 1 year. There's a number of years that need to go by for not only development process, permitting process, but also, you know, there's never for any development. And that's just like the single family development across the street with Kay and Durkee. You can only build a unit so quickly, you can only sell them so quickly or rent them out so quickly. So there's always a extended time period before you hit full occupancy. One of the things, and I'll sort of just tie it into also what Cindy Napoli had said about the improvements to Foster. You know, we are looking at improving Foster Street. It's on the 2024 Transportation Improvement Program. That's going to go from Taylor Street just past Balsam Lane, include a off-road recreation path, so expanded sidewalks, you know, improving the whole roadway. So one of the other things is that if you're concerned about response time will continue to be similar. It's a question ends up being, you know, depending on the makeup of the development, you know, are there more fire calls that are needed, or you know, what is the nature of the ultimate development? And that's something that right now it's hard to say whether that increases the amount of staff that's needed for fire or police until we get a better idea. But if you are concerned about response time on Foster or Taylor, even with you know, higher density at this property, it realistically isn't having that much of an impact on overall response times to or through that area.
Thank you.
We'll see you on June 12th.
Thank you. Maren, we're down to 2.
Yep, Pathak, Pathak.
Hey, thank you for having us and thank you for your time. My name is Parag Pathak, also part of the Durkee group here. So thank you for having us in this town, of course. I just had 2 questions. So I'm not so familiar with the affordable housing and how it works, but from what I understood from some of my friends is that it's more of a lottery. So I'm just curious to know, I know we're creating affordable housing so that young adults can come back to the town that they grew up in, but how can we guarantee that we're not going to get other low income families who aren't part of that group coming back in and basically taking their spots? And who makes that final decision on who gets the affordable housing as part of that lottery? And the second question is more related to just streetlights in Littleton. Is that something we're considering if we're adding so many people and density within this area? You know, we lack some serious streetlights, and you know, with that many people around, it could be higher risk for accidents, theft, many other things. So is that something in consideration to light up the streets a bit more, just to provide a sense of safety and security?
Thank you. Joe, you want to handle that one too?
On the streetlights, that would be something that you know, can definitely get back to, and even for the next planning board meeting can you know, provide you with some response. So if people that are continuing to follow the public hearings can at least get more of a response, so we can get a little bit more information on that. I just wanted to just briefly just let everyone know who is maybe still on the meeting. The town does have the Foster Street project on its website. So if anyone does have questions, this has been something that the select board has been working on for last couple years with the highway department, DPW director, for improvements, so you can take a closer look to see what's going on. We'll be able to, as we go through different stages for this project, there will be a public hearing on once we get to finalize the plans, that then everyone would be invited and able to hear things in a little bit more detail to learn more about the exact nature of the project. And regarding affordability, that's one of the things that as the planning board completes its work on the bylaw and identifies the affordability provisions, we also work with consultants to provide us guidance as far as running lotteries and setting some of the criteria that people who are interested in the affordable units can have. So that would be a process that would be still in the future for the board and its consultants to finalize for how affordable units would be administered for this project.
Got it.
Thank
Thank you for that.
Thank you, Myron. We have one more.
Yep, Sean?
Sean, you want to unmute yourself?
Sorry about that. Sean Coffey, Grimes Lane, also a firefighter in town. Couple points I wanted to speak to. One's going to be traffic. Grimes Lane, I guarantee none of you have even driven up it. Since they put in the Durkee development, traffic is quadrupled. It's a single lane road. Now you're proposing this giant development to go in. Shaking your head doesn't do anything. You're proposing the development to go in, and all you're going to address is just Grimes into Foster Street, and you can't fit any more traffic there. You got a proposal. It's $1 million to put a bridge to recorrect that. That's not going to happen. My problem with the whole thing is we're short-sighted looking at the impact you're going to have, that density. Joe, you just spoke to response times, density, all that affects response times for the fire department. It's crazy to even say that you have time to think about it. We're planning it right now. No one in the town administration is planning on staffing. We lost the entire call department for the town of Littleton due to this COVID pandemic. And you're telling us we have time and the response times aren't going to be affected to Kathleen? That's ridiculous. One affects the other. You add density, you're going to take that ambulance out of town. There's only 4 guys on full time, 24 hours a day, 2 trucks max. It's ridiculous to say that's not going to affect it. Kathleen had awesome concerns and she voiced them and they get brushed off is ridiculous. The time to adjust there is now. You need to plan it out. There's no plan for staffing. Your selectmen's meeting on Monday just spoke to having to make decisions about staffing at the fire department. You cut every single one of their capital items off their budget. Yet we have time to adjust. There's no time to adjust. Adding the density that this is going to bring to the town is mind-blowing. Thank you for your time in this project. Have a good night.
Thank you. Well, okay, well, we need to continue this so that while everyone's still on, we can give them a date and a time that we're continuing. I want to again thank Cindy for her presentation. Did a great job and thank you for the help. Myron, we're looking at April
22nd, Thursday.
April.
Yeah,
Okay.
Thursday, April 22nd. Do you want to do this, start at 7 o'clock with the zoning bylaw public hearings? Whichever
Sure.
ones you don't finish up this evening, including.
That'd be great.
Yeah. So.
Does that work? Is everybody good with that? Jeff and Delisa and Anna, you're all right with that? That means we're gonna have 2 meetings in April as well, correct?
Correct.
Yeah, I figured the math out. Yep, okay. April 22nd. And thank you, Joe. Thank you, Anthony. Thank you all for attending. Thank you for the questions. Hope to see you at the next meeting. We'll have a little more of a fine tuning of this and we can hopefully answer the rest of your questions at that meeting. All right, we have a 7:15 zoning bylaw amendment public hearing, adult use marijuana delivery. You want to read the public hearing, public notice for that?
That was all the same notice. So if Ivrea is here, perhaps you can raise your hand. I don't see her. Okay, I must have been mistaken. I thought we were anticipating town council to walk us through this one.
Well, do you want to continue it till?
We have the letter. Well, that's up to you. We have the letter that she provided with us. Do you want to see if anybody has comments on this one? Yes.
Well, maybe I'll just tell everyone what it's about, so that at least they get an understanding.
Yeah.
The CCC, the Cannabis Control Commission, has decided that in the future, it's still being worked out, that you can buy your marijuana products online. And if the town does not enact the bylaw, then anybody can come in and sell their marijuana products in the town of Littleton online. This is not going to preclude you buying them from a website based in some other town, and they'll still have the ability to come in. It's just the way to restrict how many we have control over. And we've picked the number of 2, since we have 2 retail establishments. We're looking at possibly 2 online establishments that may be the same establishments that are the retail, may not, depending on how the bylaw finally ends up. But we're trying to at least restrict the amount of, if we don't do anything, then as many people that want to come in will be able to come in. And we're not saying a lot will want to come in, but just that we have to have something in place to at least have the opportunity to restrict how many can actually operate out of Littleton. Is that a fair assessment of the bylaw somehow, somewhere? Yes, Anna?
Mr. Chair, you used the term online. Did you mean delivery?
Well, online and delivery, yes.
Okay.
Online, well, yeah, I guess I should have. You can buy it online and have it delivered to your house.
Thank you.
Yes. Okay. So that's what we're talking about now. You know, like anything else, Amazon or somebody or whoever is going to have a drone fly up to your house and drop it off on your front doorstep. Who knows how it's going to ultimately end up. But the fact is that the Cannabis Control Commission is now getting ready to license online delivery of marijuana to your doorstep. Well, anyway, so we're just working on a bylaws to at least limit the number of online retail establishments that we can have in the town. That's what this is all about.
Well, I appreciate town council working with the planning board to come up with the appropriate language based on what our previous discussions were, and that they've been able to kind of synthesize things for us. So I think we're on our way to being able to finalize this. Does that sound right?
That's fine with me. Do you want to put them on for the 18th as well, next month as well, and then circle back?
Yeah.
Yeah,
April 22nd.
Yeah, why don't we do
Correct.
that?
Yes.
Okay.
Any other board comments?
Any other comments? Nobody has their hands up? I don't see any, but. No. Jeff,
No hands raised at the moment.
Okay. Okay, so let's move on to our 8 o'clock, which is the amendment to the senior residential development inclusionary housing. So this was, we're working on, you already did the public hearing, right, Lauren? That's part of the big 3? Okay.
Yep. And then actually for this one, I've got a 1 slide thing if you want to.
Sounds good to me. Put it up there.
There you go. And we don't know the number of the warrant, what the warrant article number will be, so that's why the NN, but this just gives a description of the different sections of the proposed bylaw and what it's doing. Mark, is that about what you were going to say?
You've captured the essence of it. I can't believe you read my mind, Lauren. So it's basically, we're cleaning up the definitions of independent living. We're cleaning up we're allowing senior residential apartments, and just kind of basically cleaning up what we already have. The question has always been, what's an independent living unit? We want something that has more amenities that go with it, and mowing the lawn is not really an amenity that constitutes independent living, things like that. Something that actually enhances the person's life, whether it's food, whether it's some sort of care, things like that. So that's going to be spelled out more in the bylaw. So anything else? Anyone on the board want to speak about this one? Anna?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So I appreciate also that town council was able to make some of the changes that were requested at the last planning board meeting, specifically related to individuals with disabilities, adding that, and then also the appropriate parking. So that's now in there. I also wanted to revisit a conversation that we briefly had last time related to the number of homes or units, I should say, the maximum being 64. So under Amendment 4, D as in dog, I would actually like to propose that we make that a maximum of 64 in each of the 3 locations permitted in B2. And the reason for that is that, let's say a developer were to come in and create all 64 units in one particular location, but then we had somebody else who was interested in building some senior homes someplace else, we would already have to say, well, you know what, that was it. So I would open it up to allow for that opportunity that it could be a maximum of 64 in any of the 3 locations that are permitted. So I wanted to raise that for discussion.
Board have any question or comment on that? And on Anna's proposal? Jeff, you want to weigh in?
Well, the 64 number, I remember asking about how that was generated, and it was somewhat arbitrary. I think that it just seems to me odd to be so specific. And I think what we could do, I agree with Anna, maybe we open it up to different locations and you can get more, but maybe 50 in each location, or 64 just seems, I've never seen such a
Random. It's like random.
I've never seen such a specific number in a zoning code. And I know it came from a survey of need, which was just a point in time and with maybe not really fine-tuned criteria. So that's all. I mean, I do we even have to have a number? I mean, do we really think that there's going to be just an overwhelming amount of these projects proposed? That's all. I mean, I'm just putting that out there. So.
Good point.
Yeah, I don't have any personal, it wouldn't hurt my feelings if that number changes, or if there's no number. Drafting a bylaw, you got to throw something in there, and that's okay. What I did. Certainly up to your recommendation and on what you'd like to see in it.
I wouldn't know what the recommendation would be. It would be like a feeling. So I'm wondering if we need a number. Do we need a number?
So we can ask town council if there's a way to, if we do. Yeah, if you don't feel the need for a maximum number, then we can certainly remove that.
We want to run it by them beforehand anyway. We're just first meeting on this one too, so
correct.
I want to get some input from them.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you. So
there was a hand up. It went back down though.
We scared them. Stormwater update, general bylaw.
Okay, so that one's a general bylaw. I would recommend you actually vote on, continuing the public hearings for zoning bylaw amendments. to April 22nd, starting at 7 p.m.
Okay. Sure, that'd be great. All right. So we're back now. We're down to board business.
Who made that motion?
I think Anna did.
I second.
What was that motion? I'm sorry. Can you please repeat it?
That we continue the stormwater and all the amendments until April 18th.
The three zoning bylaw, the public hearing for the three zoning bylaw amendments to April 22nd, starting at 7 p.m.
You made that motion, don't you remember? Jeff seconded it.
I seconded it.
All those in favor? Delisa? She's an aye. Jeff's an aye. Aye.
Yes.
Anna, are you an aye?
Please repeat what it is. I'm sorry.
We're just continuing the public hearings to a date specific, April.
For which bylaws?
All three.
So the 40R, the marijuana, and the senior residential.
So it's all four, actually.
No, all three.
What about stormwater? You want to just
Well,
leave it?
we're going to get into that next. Rebecca's here to
All
walk
right,
us through
so
that
she's-
as
all right, so
soon
those three-
as we continue this other hearing.
Thank
All
you,
right.
Anna, for clarifying that.
Yes, you didn't tell us. All right.
Well, I'm sorry. As a general bylaw, it doesn't need a public hearing.
Well, I
So-
thought we were done, and since no one was there, I thought we were moving on with it. My mistake.
Okay, so
All
in
right.
that case, Mr. Chair, I vote yes to.
Okay.
To.
All right, so we're gonna open up the
three.
stormwater bylaw update for 8:30, and we'll continue the other three until April 22nd. Okay, is that housekeeping done now?
Thank you.
All right, Rebecca. It's all yours, Rebecca.
All right. Good evening, everyone. So Rebecca Lacey from Town Council's office. And so as discussed, I'm here to discuss a proposed revision of the Stormwater Management and Erosion Control Bylaw. And as discussed, because it's a general bylaw, not a zoning bylaw, the review process is more informal. So this is basically a chance for you all to get any questions answered and for the stormwater team to get your input. We're sort of traveling around to the various boards seeking input, and it'll be sort of an iterative process in finalizing the revisions. So I'll just give a very brief background. So town council and the town's stormwater consultants, Ty and Bond, are recommending that the town revise its stormwater management and erosion control bylaw, which is administered by the planning board, as well as the regulations by which the planning board implements that bylaw. And so in your materials, there's a revised red line showing proposed revisions to the bylaw, as well as a cover memo briefly explaining the proposal. And so just as a brief background, also for those, the audience at home, the stormwater bylaw regulates construction activities that disturb more than an acre of land. So it's really the larger projects. And the goal is to ensure that stormwater runoff is properly managed both during construction, but is also after construction, that the stormwater system for the project is designed well so that it won't have negative impacts on the town storm drain system and on surface water bodies. And the town adopted this bylaw to comply with the requirements of a permit that the town is subject to from EPA and Mass DEP that regulates the town's discharges from its storm drain system into surface waters. And this permit, it's a general permit that applies to pretty much every town in eastern Massachusetts. So Littleton is not alone. That permit was first issued in 2003 and it was recently revised. Those revisions were just finalized last year. And so now all of those towns subject to that permit are subject to a host of new requirements, a number of expanded requirements. And one of those is to impose heightened requirements on these projects larger than an acre that towns are already regulating. Basically, the performance standards that those projects need to meet now need to be ratcheted up, basically, so that the water quality and quantity coming off of those projects is improved even more than it already was. And for the most part, those heightened performance standards can be put in place via the planning board's stormwater regulations. So that's, a process that doesn't need to go before a town meeting. But a few revisions to the bylaw are necessary just to ensure that the parameters set by the bylaw are consistent with the changes that we're going to have to make to the regulations. And so the cover memo kind of walks through what those changes are. And you can let me know if you want me to kind of highlight the key ones, or if I should just open it up for questions at this point. What do you think, Mark? Sorry.
I maybe give us the highlighted ones.
Okay. So the most significant changes that we're recommending to the bylaw are basically, I would say, three. The first is, the kind of biggest one, is to remove the exemption for projects that are permitted under the Wetlands Protection Act. Those projects had been exempted because under the Wetlands Protection Act, they're subject to stormwater management standards, which had been the equivalent of what the town was imposing under the Stormwater Bylaw. So there was no need to duplicate that review. But now, with these heightened requirements in this new permit, the existing Mass DEP stormwater standards that are in the wetlands regs are not good enough. And Mass DEP is working on changing those standards, but that's probably not going to be done for another year or possibly more. And it's not completely clear what shape those revisions are going to ultimately take. So the recommendation is just that the town now revise this bylaw so that every project disturbing more than an acre, every construction project disturbing more than an acre will require the stormwater permit from the planning board. And then it'll be very, crystal clear that these heightened requirements are being imposed on equally on every project, so that the town is in compliance with this, with these heightened requirements of the revised permit. So removing that exemption for wetlands permitted projects is the biggest one. The other key ones are, one is to include a requirement to incorporate low impact development measures unless infeasible, and to also define low impact development. I know that's something that the town has had in place for a while. The town has its own low impact development guidance. It just hadn't been part of this particular bylaw. It sort of wasn't a concept that was part of the 2003 permit, but now this is a new concept being introduced by this revised permit. And in fact, the permit requires that low impact development measures be adopted by these development projects unless infeasible. So it's going to be a kind of a key part of the new performance standard. So we're recommending to add that term to the bylaw. And then the last significant change is one that's not required by the EPA permit, but that we and Ty and Bond are recommending, which is to give in the bylaw, give the planning board authorization to specify what precipitation data set should be used when these developers, consultants are doing their stormwater design and their hydrological modeling. The stormwater precipitation data set that says, what depth a certain design storm is going to, what depth of water that design storm is going to provide. DEP is using a very outdated precipitation data set reference. Many towns throughout Massachusetts are adopting one of two much more updated references, one called NOAA Atlas 14 and one called the Cornell precipitation data set. And using one of those more updated precipitation data sets just ensures that the stormwater system components are designed more appropriately for the size storms that we're now having, in this day and age. And so this would just give the planning board the authority to pick one of those instead of using the existing data set that Mass DEP is using that's fairly outdated. Those are the key ones. The other changes are sort of miscellaneous, just providing some clarifications, adding a few definitions that are in the new permit, and then providing a cutoff date for making clear what the cutoff is for which projects coming in after that date will be subject to the new permit. So those are kind of the highlights.
Have we spoken with Green at all about this? Since they're going to be the ones probably it's going to affect and impact the most. We've had no discussion with Green, have we, Maren? No.
No, I haven't had a discussion with Green, but if you remember in the past, we have had discussions with them about which precipitation data
Yeah,
to use.
I knew I was going to
Yeah.
remind that. Yeah.
Yep. And the cool thing about the stormwater group is Rebecca and I get to work with a couple of engineers from Ty and Bond. So they've been helping to guide us through what needs to be in the bylaw, and then Rebecca's writing those revisions. And ultimately, while the planning board will be the permitting authority under the stormwater, the reviews will go out for peer review still anyway.
So anyone on the board have any questions or concerns about this?
No.
No. Anna, are you all right with this?
I've asked a couple of questions, and primarily my question and concern was, so is this going to be more work for the planning board? And as Maren just indicated,
Yeah.
information will still go out for peer review. So that's helpful. Thank you.
Okay. Anyone got I don't see anyone with their hand raised, Maren.
No, nobody with their hand raised for comments.
Okay. So I guess we just move this along too. We need obviously we'll need the draft of what's going to go to town meetings, so we can get it on the warrant and everything else like that. But we're still a couple of months away from that. So.
Well, yeah, and actually, the draft that Rebecca provided with her letter is in very good form. To me, it's ready to go.
Okay.
Unless something comes
I
up.
just want to say there, I just want to note that there will be just a couple changes because in each, we've been before the select board and the conservation commission, and each of them had basically there's one section that will change from each. The conservation commission wanted to tighten up the language about the kind of cutoff date, the transition date for when this will be applicable. And the select board also just wanted to clarify the language about the precipitation data set, just make kind of, cabin. So there's not too much, so it's clear that it's going to be one of these widely accepted regionally appropriate data sets. It's not, just left open to, overly broad. So we will make those small changes. And then actually we're going to go back, but the select board sort of hadn't had enough time to kind of wrap their head around these various changes. So we're going to go back before them. So there will be another iteration or two before the final form that's going to go before town meeting. So it probably would make sense to just wait until we're at the point of having that pretty final motion. And then at that point, you guys could, give your endorsement, hopefully.
Great. Okay.
All
right. Cool. Thank you, Rebecca.
right. Thank you guys. Good night.
Thank you. Okay. So we have board business. We're a little early, but we have board business. Any board member updates or public input? No. Talisa, anything? No. Jeff?
Nothing new.
No. Anna?
Not at this time.
Kind of quiet? No, nothing. No, me either. No. Met with the Affordable Housing Trust, but more procedural than anything else. Nothing earth-shattering there. What about minutes, February 18th and March 4th? Anybody have any problems with the minutes as Maren presented them?
Yeah, the only ones I was ready, I was able to get posted was the February 18.
Okay. Anyone have any problem with the minutes for February 18th? Jeff?
No.
Nope. Anna?
No.
Somebody I'll entertain a motion from somebody to approve the minutes of February 18th.
So moved.
I'll second.
Second.
Thank
All
you.
those in favor? Jeff?
Yes.
Delisa? Yes.
Muted. Yes.
Yes. Anna?
Yes.
And I'm a yes. Okay, great. Greenfield Drive, Paper Street. Is there anyone here for that, Maren, or do you want to, are we just
Not-
discussing amongst ourselves? Somebody's got their hand
There you go.
raised.
Somebody with their hand up. I'm not sure who that is.
Oh,
Yeah, I'm not sure who that is. It's signed in as Galaxy S10 Plus. had a hand up.
Do you want to unmute yourself, please?
Hello, can you hear me?
Hello?
There she is.
All right, can you hear me now?
Oh, no. You're using aliases
wait.
now, so we'll call on you?
Sneaking in.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
No, we don't. No, we can't hear you. Go away.
I'm
All right.
stuck. I don't have any sound. Wait,
Is that a Ford Galaxy S10?
yeah,
Anyway,
right.
Are you, do you want to speak on this, or
I'm at
what's
the
what's
meeting.
up with?
Yes, I want to speak.
Okay. Speak.
Okay. First of all, I know you're all tired, and I appreciate the presentations tonight. I've been on since 6:30, and you all did a great job. A lot of work went into them. We're here tonight, continuing the Greenfield Drive Paper Street discussion. When we left the last time, the board was concerned about a few things that I think we have addressed and that should have been submitted to you. First and foremost was the question of whether making the road passable was even allowed to this developer, and the answer to that is clearly yes. I've cited some case law and I've sent it in to you, along with a quote from the deed to the abutter to the left and to the right, which says that anybody who has rights of way in that street have a right. The other question was whether or not the roadway in front of the house being proposed on that lot that has been approved as a grandfathered building lot by the building department. The only question is whether the road is suitable width and grade. That's the bylaw review when you're asking to build on a private way or a paper street, which this is. And when we left here, Mark, you talked about there having to be a T-turnaround and enough development of this as a way to accommodate other users along the way. I want to point out to you that there can never be another user along this way because one owner owns all of the abutting lots left and right as you face this plan. And that's all grandfathered. So there, I'm sorry, not grandfathered, that's all merged. So could not be grandfathered as separate building lots. So coming along Greenfield for this one lot is the only thing that can ever happen when buildable house lot. And we have letters from police, fire, and DPW, all in agreement that a 12-foot roadway is suitable width and grade. And furthermore, Tom Clancy wrote that he does not feel that a T turnaround or a full cul-de-sac turnaround is necessary where it's only serving the one lot. So we're here to ask you today to please accept that this is suitable width and grade for a single home on this single lot, provided it's developed to the point of a 12-foot width as proposed.
Okay. Board, have any questions or concerns about this? Go ahead, Jeff.
I don't have any concerns. This is essentially a driveway. There are many properties in town that are, I mean, it's a driveway on a paper street, but it's built to driveway standards. And there are certainly lots of structures that are approached by driveways that are longer than this. So from a safety point of view, I don't see the issue.
Well, the only issue I have with it is now you're getting frontage off a driveway. So,
it's a paper street. I'm strictly talking about the development standards of the access. I'm not talking about the frontage issue. And I accept the frontage issue. It's a paper street. And it seems to me onerous to require a street for one house.
You need frontage. In order to build that house, you need to have frontage on the street.
But there are lines on a deed that show frontage.
Could we please bring up a image? Thank you, Maren.
You read my mind.
Okay.
Thank you.
So Colonial Drive, right here, Stowe Place right here. The property owner the developer is looking to own this lot and this lot. It has a driveway proposed right at the intersection of Stowe Place, coming in 100 feet there, 100 feet there to serve a new house here. When I had informal discussion with him, which is, item 2 on the recommended process for a paper street determination, I asked why there wasn't just one single driveway it's right there. That's not the proposal that's in front of you, but that was the question that I asked.
Well, that's actually the question I have, because if the property owner developer do it this way, there's actually 2 properties of Mr. Stefan, I believe, number 121 and 190, that this cuts through. So we're essentially allowing this to be, we would essentially be allowing this to be created by cutting through somebody else's 2 different properties. And the position that you just mentioned, Maren, about coming through their own property makes better sense.
I need to interrupt if you don't mind. There are separate properties. The property at, if you will, the property at 121 is merged with, if you look at the assessors map, is merged with 120, 119, 18, 17, excuse me, and 120, not 17, and 123. Those are all merged.
Mhm.
That's one lot. It cannot have further houses developed on it. Property at 122 is its own lot. It does not coexist with the lot in yellow across the street.
But Sherry,
Maren says we should come through that fronts on Colonial Drive.
Sherry, what Anna was trying to say is the guy who owns lot 21, all those other lots, also owns lot 90. So he owns.
Stay with me, please. And I am telling you that 91, that Anna is saying this fellow owns both, is its own separate lot. I'm telling you, it can never be buildable because it doesn't meet the grandfather standards for frontage and size.
Excuse me, Sherry, 91 is owned by the same people that own the lot that's lot parcel 22.
Sorry, I have the wrong number, 90.
90 is owned by the same guy who owns parcel 121. He owns to the middle of the road, so he owns both sides of the road.
No, Mark, excuse me. He owns to the midpoint of the road by a construct, which is subject to the rights of way of everyone else who has property on Greenfield Drive to pass and repass.
So what Anna's trying to say, and what Maren's trying to say, is to make it easier, go through Colonial Drive, through parcel 191, and we would probably be more agreeable to that than to go the other route and come down the road. I don't think
91, Mark, 91 is a separate potential buildable lot owned by coincidentally the same owner, but it doesn't merge, and town council has written that it doesn't merge and doesn't have to merge.
Who's going to maintain this roadway?
Greenfield?
Yeah, because it's going to be a private way. It's not going to be owned by the town. It needs
the owner of 122 is going to maintain.
So it's going to need a place for snow removal. It's going to need a place for turnaround. It's going to need
to remove snow right onto its own driveway into the house. You would come down Greenfield and push the snow onto lot 122.
I just don't like setting precedent that we're using driveways.
This isn't a precedent. This is exactly what you did with Joyce. Exactly what you did with Joyce. And there are other lots you did.
She built the road. She built a full-size road, and she put a turnaround. The street right up above it, Springfield, has a turnaround that services 3 lots that are owned by the town and 1 other house lot on it.
And that's the difference. There are no other lots who are ever going to.
It services 1 house, and yet it has a turnaround. If you pull the GIS mapped up and look at Springfield Drive, you'll see there's a turnaround at the end of that, not a dead end street.
Mark, the reason that's a turnaround is because there are 3 houses before you get to that one.
There's
Colonial Drive.
How about we focus on this one?
Pardon me?
Let's focus on this one.
I can't hear you. I'm sorry.
Let's focus on this one.
Springfield's right beside this one and has a turnaround on it. There's a cul-de-sac. It's literally right off the Stowe. It's an extension of it, and it has a turnaround. That's the only point I'm trying to get at. If you want to put a 12-foot road and get frontage off a 12-foot road and have no turnaround, then that's fine. But if you do it, you're gonna have to do it for all these lots that are left in the town of Littleton that have illusionary frontage on.
So I'm looking at 91, which is owned by the individual who also owns 122, and 91, based on the map that I'm looking at, looks tiny, teeny tiny. I don't know how we're going to ever have that be its own parcel to be able to build a house on. So that's why I make the recommendation that Maren first pointed out about being able to put the drive through there. I just don't see how that's going to be a buildable lot.
It may never be a buildable lot, but it also does not require that the owner of 91 give up the potential for that by selling it along with 122.
What's the acreage?
122 is
how many acres are there on lot 91?
0.17.
0.17 of an acre.
So there's 5,000 square feet and there's 100 feet of front, 150 feet of frontage on Colonial.
Okay,
It only
so
needs
that's one point I wanted to make. The second one is related back to number 90 and Mr. 120 and 121. And I believe that Mr. Stephen Johnson is actually on the attendee list with his hand raised. May we hear from him, Mr. Chair?
Mark, you're muted.
Oh, sorry about that. I guess, I don't know how Sherry figured out how to mute me, but she did it. Anyway, so we have Mr. Stephen Johnson. Mr. Johnson, can you unmute yourself? Mr. Johnson, are you there?
Yeah, I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay. Yeah, I've been following the discussion here a little bit, and as you know already, I own the abutting lots there, 121 and 90. But I object to this, obviously. I don't know how much that would carry, but I also have questions around the placement of the leach field for this new development, which is very close to my own leach field, first of all, and also very close to my property lines. So those are the 3 points that I had.
We haven't really looked at the layout of the property. We're still trying to get to it. We understand you own both sides of the road, and as Anna and I have spoken, I think we would be more in favor of trying to go through Colonial than to go through the road on your property. I have a problem with a driveway that's, these smadback lots have been there for 60 years, and every year more and more of them pop up because they are the only reasonable, affordable lots left in the town of Littleton. And the board is always, we take Halloran, she put a full-size road in with a full-size turnaround to service really one house. And that was kind of the benchmark we did a couple of years ago. I'm not thrilled about relaxing the standards to put one more house in. It's a house and it needs frontage, and it's going to be private. The town's not going to pave it. I do think there needs to be a way to turn around police and fire there no matter what we do, whether it's a T turnaround or something. But I'm just not thrilled with a driveway and calling it frontage, because if we do it here, we have to do it everywhere else.
I'd like to address a couple of things that were stated. One is that the case law is very, very clear that a paper street affords the rights of passage and repassage to every lot that abuts it. That cannot be changed. It's unfortunate that the fellow on the phone owns both sides of it, but he bought it on a plan that reflects a paper street. And if he checks with his title examiner, his legal counsel, whomever, it is always subject to the rights of passage. The second thing is Mass statute describes what is a grandfathered lot. It has nothing to do with Littleton or relaxed standards in Littleton. The case law is very clear and the statute is specific. 5,000 square feet of area and 50 feet of frontage on a lot that has never merged or been in common ownership with any contiguous lot. This lot has passed that muster. It went through town council, and there's a letter saying it's a buildable lot with its frontage on Greenfield. The only question before the planning board is whether or not Greenfield is of sufficient width and grade to accommodate the development of, in this case, one single home that has to travel a distance of about 50 feet, I think, to get to its access driveway. The planning board is within its rights to say a full subdivision width must be created to make this happen, but that is subject to suitable width and grade, is subject to the police, the fire, and the planning board weighing in, along with police, fire, and DPW. All three have weighed in with the opinion that 12 feet is suitable width and grade to accommodate this one house with one access roadway from that terminus at the point of lot 90, if you will, from Stowe Place. And I don't see how the planning board can conclude that this particular applicant needs to do any more than satisfy the fire department's need for emergency vehicles, the police need for traffic and other things, and the DPW's acceptance of this width. If you want 15 width, Mark, we can do that. And if you want the turnaround to be the driveway that leaves Greenfield and enters lot 122, that will be a 2-car length, which is perfectly suitable for any delivery vehicle, snowplow truck, or emergency vehicle to come in, do what it needs to do, back out, and leave again. So to say that it's not suitable width and grade for one house has no justification in my opinion.
It's not one house though. That's the point.
There is one more hand raised.
What?
I'm sorry, there is one more hand raised.
Oh, okay.
Just a moment. Gary Allen. Did we lose him? No, there he is.
Gary, you want to unmute yourself? Gary? Gary, are you there? You have to unmute yourself. Gary? Gary, the little microphone thing, click on it. There you go. Gary, can you hear us?
Yes, I'm sorry. Hit the
That's all right.
Lost everything. I just have one question. The way I'm reading the letter from Mr. Clancy from the fire department is roadway or driveway, still unclear on that. It says it can't be any more than 150 feet and straight in. And from the last meeting, it appeared like the driveway was going to be held off this driveway. So that's a concern from me. It doesn't seem clear. I'm not sure that the fire department got a clear picture of what was happening. And now you get a driveway that should be a roadway. It isn't taxed. I mean, I'd like my portion of my land driveway not be taxed. It just doesn't seem, you're either going to be a road or nothing, in my opinion. I guess that's all I have to say.
Mara, can you put up the plan again?
Yeah, just a moment.
And then, Chair, we do have one other hand raised.
Yeah. Let me let that person in first. And then I'll share.
Gary, are you still there? Are you done?
I am. I think I made a point so far.
Thank you.
So if we look at the map before we get, so we're looking at 260 feet of roadway here, roughly thereabouts. The lot 122 is 160 feet long and parcel 121 is 100. So that's 260 feet of driveway, what we're talking about, to get to Mr. Allen's point. So it's not 100 feet, it's 200, it's almost 260 feet. So, all right, so anyway, Myron, who had their hand raised?
Just a moment. I see different things when I'm in this mode.
It was Leona.
Yeah, Leona.
Just say something about the.
Hi, this is Leona. I live at 62 Colonial Drive. My question to you is the proposed property that he wants to build on, if he was to come through Colonial Drive, he doesn't have frontage to come through Colonial Drive unless those two lots were merged. Is that correct?
And then you have to give up the road at Greenfield. Yeah, it would involve a lot more issues. Yes. He doesn't have the right to merge them. He doesn't have the right to access through Greenfield because it's theoretically still a paper street. So, yeah. Is that your point?
That, can you hear me? That is my point. That plus he was also talking about building another house on that front lot. So he really doesn't want to come that way.
Right. Obviously wants to try to put another house on that tiny lot there.
Correct.
Mm-hmm.
But we're just not talking about it.
Right. So that's why he wants to come in off Stowe Place. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
No, we get that. So anyway, so what's the board want to do? Do you want to bring town council in on it? Do we want to decide it ourselves? I was sort of hoping we get town council to weigh in, but we never did get a letter from them.
Yeah, Cindy would like to weigh in as well.
Okay, Cindy?
Hi, thank you, Mr. Montanari. So Cindy Napoli, I reside at, can you hear me? I hear like a lot of background noise. 47 Springfield Drive. So I guess I'm still confused about. Is that Leon and Gary?
Be sure to mute everyone except Cindy.
Yeah, there's too much background noise. Sorry. Thank you. So I am interested in the point that was raised about the letter submitted by Mr. Clancy. I guess I need to review that with regard to the length of Greenfield Drive and the information that was provided to the first responders when making their opinion regarding this property. And I still don't understand how this paper road can be utilized for this purpose. And, you know, overall, I think it's opening Pandora's box. I appreciate that it was done before with respect to Concord Drive, but I'm not sure that it's the same type of situation. So, you know, personally, I'd like to take another look at those, the letters submitted by the first responders, just to see what information they were given when they did make their opinion about emergency access to this property. The other thing I wanted to ask too is how many feet does this leaching field or this system need to be from a well, a residential well?
Is there a residential well there? But I believe it has to be 100 feet.
Because the Allens who live behind me, who are on this call, Gary Allen, his well is, I believe, within less than 100 feet from that proposed system.
Right, and that's something that's outside of the purview of the planning board that would be looked at by the Board of Health during their septic review process. And
Okay.
Unfortunately, I don't know where that is in the process.
Right. So my other question too, and I'm just having a hard time seeing the parcel numbers, the parcels owned by Stefan. What is it, 121 and 190?
121 and 90.
Yeah, 90. Thank you, Maren. So if you abut a paper road, you own so many feet into the roadway. Is that correct?
You own to the middle.
You own to the middle. So how, if Stefan owns on parcel 90, in parcel 121 into the middle, is there still 12 feet passage?
That's what Sherry's arguing right now, that that the people who own 122 have the right to go through the owners of parcel 90 and 121 to put a road in. They can't be precluded because it's part of the deed that was done in the Smadbacks way back 70 years ago.
Okay. Oh, because they're not conjoined because the paper road runs through them. But I mean, I don't know, if you own a paper road, if you own halfway into the paper road, what is that square footage? What does that look like?
20 feet. So, you know,
yeah,
they don't see that line and about in the middle, they owns to the middle of that line on both sides. About 20 feet in on each side. If it's a 40-foot taking, so they own 20 feet on either side.
Okay.
So,
Mr. Shaw is here. There he's.
So basically the paper road now becomes a driveway.
that's really the issue here, whether a driveway is adequate for frontage and
Because it's no longer a paper road, especially with the location of the house. It's not. Does
He
the
needs
paper
frontage,
road
yeah.
go away?
he has frontage. He needs frontage to access this lot, and he has to get it from the roadway that has to be built. And the question is, what's adequate? We have to decide what's adequate for frontage for this and what amenities go with it, because in theory, it's supposed to be built to subdivision standard. That's how
Okay.
it's supposed to be done. But we're just so anyway. So
Okay. I'm just trying to get a better understanding of it. Thank you.
Mr. Chair,
yes,
Go ahead.
Sherry Gould. I would like to ask you to get an opinion of counsel on this, because there are three, at least, legal constructs that I've cited that I think the board is losing sight of, and I would like counsel to weigh in, please.
okay.
It's my feeling that your determination is limited to whether or not 12-foot width is wide enough for a single home. And Mark, your question about whether a T turnaround at the end is necessary. There's no other deliberation. Whether or not we can pass through 90 and 121 is a legal matter. Whether or not there is a approved building lot is a legal matter. The septic questions are the Board of Health purview. So the only thing in front of this board is whether or not 12-foot width of pavement is suitable width and grade. Greenfield is always a paper street. It's always going to be a paper street. It will not go away if we build it out to driveway width. It will still be a paper street, 40 feet in width. It's just whether or not this board is going to require a full subdivision inferior road build out to serve one house. That's the only question.
Yeah, I think you hit it right on the head. I think we need to get town council to weigh in on that.
Yes.
Before we go any further, but you hit all the key points right on the head, Sherry.
Thank you.
So do we want
Let's do
to?
that.
Yeah. So do we want to send this to town council, and we're going to want an opinion, especially cited on what Sherry cited, and we'll go from there.
Yes.
Doug, since you're on, do you want to have a point since you waited this long? You want to say something, or you want to wait till the next meeting?
I'll wait to the next meeting at this point. We'll let town council weigh in.
Okay, that'll be great. Thank you. Thanks. All right, so Mara, you want to put this on we need to put it on not just this board, we need a slot for it. Can we get it on the 18th, our next meeting?
Next meeting is April 8th.
Do we have space there?
Yes.
So, all right, why don't we, Anna?
Mr. Chair, we have another attendee with their hand up, Jerry Cavallo.
Just a moment.
Should have a time limit. If you don't see you in time, I can't call on you. Just kidding.
This is Jerry. This is Jerry Cavallo, 8 Uplands Road, Littleton. I'm speaking on behalf of the Bicycle and Pedestrian Committee. I'm not sure what the current status is of a paper road, if it's public property, but I just want to make sure if the board goes on and approves this, that the public doesn't lose any right to walk on or ride a bike on Greenfield Drive if it's currently public property, just because somebody puts a driveway up. If somebody puts up a driveway and puts private drive, that would discourage the public from using it. So just want to make sure the public doesn't lose any rights on a paper road. That's all I got. Thank you.
It's not even built. It's woods right now. So there's no.
Right. Well, public can walk through the woods right now, right?
Well, it's not a public way. It's private right now.
I believe the law of paper street is that a paper street is a street on a map to which the public have a right of access. I believe that's the law. I know for a fact that it is a right of access to every lot that abuts on it. I just don't know if it's available to the rest of the public.
Nice.
So Sherry's fading in and out, but whatever rights the public currently has, the Bicycle and Pedestrian Committee, who asked me to come and bring up this point, would like to make sure that those rights are not lost by putting up a private drive on a paper road.
Okay. We'll have town council weigh in on that one as well.
Thank
Anything
you.
else? All right, so we want to put them on for the 8th of April.
Mhm.
You want to pick a time, or you want to just to be determined?
Yeah, we're not in an official hearing, so I'll set the agenda as soon as I can.
Okay, great. Thank you all.
Thank you very much, board.
Thank you. All right, so Wellington Drive, set the bond amount. Do we have a number or no?
No, we don't have a number yet.
Okay, Croft Lane, set the bond amount and lot releases. Do we have that one?
Same thing.
Well, I want to thank you all for a long night. We did great. We got through. Nobody's running us out of town yet, so that's a good thing. So we'll reconvene on the April 8th, and you guys did a great job. Thank you. And so did Joe and Anthony, and I think it went well considering first blush at this. I think everything went good, sort of. Are you good, Anna? I see you smiling. Are you smirking or what? Do you want to make a motion that we go home?
I move to adjourn the meeting.
Anyone want to second that?
I second.
All in favor, Jeff?
Aye.
Delisa?
Aye.
Anna?
Yes, please.
Judy, you want to leave too? I think we're done. Maren and I say yes. Let's go. Good night, all.
Aye, good
Thank you.
night.
Hi.
Thank you.
Thank you.